After over 25 years of marriage, we've learned that successful couples have great friendships, put each other first, and focus on light just as much as love. We believe marriage should be fun and easy.
Our goal is to share our journey with the hopes of helping others build strong, happy relationships. Join us as we continue to create our lives beyond I do.
We are not marriage counselors, nor are we mental health professionals. We're just simply sharing y'all how we navigated through our marriage. Now, on with the show.
Welcome back to the Beyond I Do podcast. We have Paul and Mashanda with us, and we also have Mr. Rod Jeter with us, who is the creator of the YBAngry game. This is a game for couples to work through any issues or concerns that they have, and so we're going to get started.
All right. Let's start with you, Mr. Jeter. What was the foundation of creating this game?
So, I always tell people my wife's a wonderful, wonderful person. And my entire family loves her, me too. But after about 10 years of being married, I was wanting to check out. Actually wanted a divorce, but she hadn't done anything. You know, I hadn't caught her lying or cheating or forcing my food all of a sudden. I just wanted out. And so I talked to my wife about going to counseling, and being the person she is, she agreed. So we went to counseling, and we got kicked out of counseling on the 5th of what was supposed to be 12 or 16 weeks. It was my fault. I was being stubborn. The counselor wanted us to do this exercise, and I didn't want to do it. Anyway, so after that, I said, man, it's a shame we didn't get the benefits of another 8 weeks of counseling. I'm sure my wife could have learned something, right?
You know what?
So I said, Lord, if I'm going to stay in this relationship, I need to see some progress right now. So I sat down and started working on something, I didn't know what. And well, it dawned on me that we had some disagreements along the way. You know, she's a woman, I'm a man. She grew up in Ohio, I grew up in South Carolina. We're just different people, right? But if we were able to resolve those disagreements as they happened, I'd be happy with her. So I set out to do something to help couples resolve their disagreements. And this is what we came up with, the game.
Oh, wow.
Now, you mentioned, you said to help to resolve issues as they come about. And so we got to see a demo earlier, and you walked Paul and Mashanda through an issue, and they won the game. But you also mentioned that this sets them up to be able to then play the game on their own. So you said as the issues come up, is that something that, you know, if we're going at it back and forth, we stop and say?
So what I meant was, unlike, you know, going through therapy, when I coach a couple, I coach them on how to play the game. Once they learn how to play the game, they can use those skills in their day-to-day lives.
Right.
So, you know, one of the main steps in here is when you say, so what you're saying to me is, and you repeat back to the other person what you believe they mean. So later on, when you're walking through the house and the husband says something to the wife, she can say, so what you're saying to me is, and they can make sure they're on the same page. Okay. And it kind of keeps them in the idea that I'm just playing a game and I'm not nagging at you. I just want to make sure I understand what you're saying. Right. And he can calmly say, no, what I meant was this, instead of, you know, going back and forth with each other.
Oh, okay.
So they will learn how to do this and keep using it.
Even outside of the context of let's sit down and do the whole thing, just as those things come about, you're learning communication.
Well, my wife was like, you know what, couples can sit down and every Sunday just play the game. It can be the thing they do. Talk about what happened this week, or, you know, if you have some time set aside, then it's easier to resolve stuff. Because you're going to sit down on Sunday and say, okay, what are we going to talk about today? What happened this week that you or I didn't like? And then they can talk about it and resolve those issues. Okay. But what I was saying is, once they learn how to play the game. There are just 14 simple steps in here. Once it becomes second nature, they don't have to actually play the game.
Right.
Well, I like the game because honestly, like I said, in the situation, the situation that came about with us, as far as how can we say no to family without getting mad, you know, I don't think she understood was a deeper issue for me because through the day-to-day things, when things happen, you don't necessarily talk about, you know, what's really on your mind. You just take a day and you just keep going. So when the opportunity comes about, that's when you talk about it. Sometimes that's not the best fashion to talk about it because emotions run high and stuff like this. But being in this environment, you know, you coach us along through as far as how to go by step, because by keep skipping steps, that's basically what's going to get you to a whole different topic. So to follow the steps in numerical order was the best thing for us. And just, you know, it let her know that it was an issue for me. You were open-minded listening. You made sure you understood that was the issue I was having. And also, I took away from it that you want to fix it also. You know the bigger benefit to fixing the issue rather than just playing the game just to play the game. And I totally agree with you. Got to be honest when you playing this game because if not, you're not going to get nowhere in the game.
Right.
There's no doubt about it.
You had also mentioned before, right after the game, that one of my 3 tips. Like if people go to YBAngry.com, they'll see a link there for 3 free tips, and all they have to do is give me their name and email address, and I'll send them a video with 3 free tips. And one of the things you said was one of my 3 free tips was that you don't try to resolve it while it's happening, while it's hot.
Right.
So you know you have to wait till people calm down, or when it's not really an issue right now. And you sit down and play the game, and it just makes it so much easier to resolve it.
Exactly.
Because when, you know, if you have something to talk about that you want to talk to your spouse about or your partner about, if you go to him and say, we need to talk, you know, right, the wall's going to go up, and it's just hard to get through that. But if you say, hey, honey, let's play YBAngry again, then, you know, everybody's going to be open-minded, and it just works.
And like how you said earlier, the whole basis of it is to know this front and back to where you can just incorporate the everyday aspects, you know, because a lot of times, and I know I've learned this in the past, it's not what you say, it's how you say it.
Right.
So asking that things to what you're telling me is, or what you're saying to me is, it makes them also think about what they're really going to say, you know, so they want to make sure they really understood you too. Then you can take a step back as the listener and say, no, I wasn't saying that. I was saying this, and then you're like, okay, you're bouncing back off each other. You know, and communication is the biggest part of any relationship. So, you know, if she goes to sleep angry, I can imagine, I could just be going 1,000 miles a minute thinking, what is she thinking? You know, same way with her. You know, oh, he's on his phone, what he's looking at. I might be looking at Dumbo videos. You know, I'm looking at something completely crazy. Right. But the whole the whole groundwork for all this is just better communication.
Yes.
You know, and that's ultimately going to help anybody.
I can say that, you know, I wish you would, and I know, you know, time, all that is considered. I wish you would have had this thing about 15 years ago. Because when her and I were going through our differences, we'd be in discussion. A lot of times she'd say, I just forget half the time because my process is just way off. And I found that writing stuff down was better for me. If I had something like this because she would say stuff, and I think when you're having a discussion, when you're arguing, you say a lot of stuff in one breath. Right. And you say a lot of stuff in one breath. You say a lot. There's no way you can get down to the basis of, okay, well, this is what you meant. You meant blah, 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 you know. But writing this down, okay, we have the issue at hand. Okay, this is what you mean. And her and I have even discussed how, you know, doing this podcast, we have been able to talk about things and express what we meant at that time. We're like, hey, okay, I didn't even think about that then. I just thought you meant it this way. So it's definitely helpful, you know, as far as anybody, any couple, you know, whether you're 50 years married or 2 months married, you got to do this game, I'm telling you. It was very interesting watching you two also, I'll tell you.
I think, too, the fact that you put them in order of most important detail, and that's where they resolved it, but then they still had the opportunity to look at the other details. because then you don't leave anything kind of left hanging.
And then there's no way out because you've got others to go through. Well, if you didn't win on the first one,
Right.
you got the next one.
You go to the next.
You got the next one.
Yeah.
And that allows you to open the field a lot more. That's fantastic.
I wanted to ask, did you think you were going to resolve that one? I know you hadn't any problem for like 8 years, but did you think you were going to resolve that issue?
Yes. I think so.
No, when you started playing, did you think it was going to be resolved?
I didn't think at first, no.
Okay.
No. But see, with this game, I had the opportunity, you know, he might have mentioned some things before about things that, you know, weren't the best for me that I probably shouldn't be doing. But just actually just sitting down where, you know, writing things down, I'm listening to how he feels, he's listening to how I feel. So I think that definitely helps in solving any issue in relationships.
Yeah, one of the things I hear a lot on the card, a lot of times one of the players will say, I felt heard, and that helps them resolve it. Even though that person might have said it to their partner 100 times already, when they sit down and play the game, all of a sudden they feel heard, just because the game is structured in a way to support really good communication, you know, clear communication, and that's all it really does, I think.
So your background has to be, you have to have a significant background to come up with something like this. What is your background?
So I have a master's degree in software engineering, but I haven't done that since like 2001.
Okay.
So I'm really social media literate and all that stuff now. But remember, I said, Lord, if I'm gonna stay in this marriage, I need to see some progress right now. And I think he just blessed me with this.
Wow.
You know, so I'm not saying a miracle happened or anything like that. I just think he helped me with this so I can help people.
Wow. That's
So
fantastic.
if, as our listeners, as viewers are hearing us talk about this game, you mentioned the website, you mentioned your video with the three tips. So what happens when they see this and they were like, I have to get my hands on this?
So if they go to YBAngry, the letter Y, the letter B, the word angry, no spaces, all together, YBAngry.com. There they can order the game, they can order the book, my book, they can see my TED Talk, and there's also probably 40 or 50 videos on there where they can see other couples playing the game. So like if you're having trouble with your spouse, you guys are fighting about whether you should buy a new car or something, you can look on the website and see if there's a video like that. And you can watch another couple resolve it, and you know, that might help you talk about it.
And you just mentioned your TED Talk. How did you work up the nerve to do that?
That's a funny story, but I just applied. I was just applying everywhere, trying to. Someone had told me like a year before I actually before I actually applied, you should do a TED Talk. But I didn't know what it was. And then one day I was on my phone and I saw somebody on stage doing a TED Talk. I said, you know what? I should do that. Try to let people know more about, know about this. And so I started applying. And San Diego was real tough, but you know, they picked me up, and it went well.
Very good.
Yes.
Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
You did well. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I do too.
You're here.
Right.
I tell you, it was very interesting because, you know, we set up a meeting with this gentleman. What is it? Early this week, Tuesday, Monday or Tuesday this week, and just kind of, you know, just making light conversation, like, you know, trying to set up a meeting to do the interview. And he's mentioned that he was in Macon, so I was like, well, hey, you 2 hours away or whatever, and he said he was going to visit his family, and he was like, well, I can come down. And you know, it was like, okay, well, let's do it.
Yeah.
And here we are. But so you basically, how long have you been traveling around the country interviewing? Because none of his videos are paid actors.
Right.
These are people who he submitted to do just that. They weren't paid.
They were
The
helped.
people he submitted to play the game. So how long have you been doing this?
It's been about 2 years now.
About 2 years?
Maybe
Wow.
2.5 years, something like that. Yeah.
So
And you've helped how many couples?
Oh, I videoed about 100.
Oh wow.
Wow.
That's fantastic.
Just all different issues, and the most common one is should she initiate sex more often?
Really?
Yeah, that's the most common one. Not by a lot, but that's the most common one.
Oh wow.
But it works the game just works every time if they play it right.
Right.
And it could be a 15, 20, or 40-year issue. On average, they're going to resolve it in less than 26 minutes, like these guys did today. I think they were at 27 minutes, but we had a little,
technical issues.
we had a little hiccup there.
Mr. Jeter was getting all my dust from up under the chair. Well, that is fantastic, man. Do y'all guys have any more questions you want to ask?
I don't have a question. I just want to give a comment. You know, I felt like this is. I wasn't expecting this to be this kind of game.
Yeah.
Man, so it's pretty neat to
yeah.
just see how quickly and effectively it can be by following the steps, and you know, it does lead to better communication. You know, and you know that's what we always talk about. What we want anyway. So if you do play the game, be honest.
Yeah.
And that's one of the catalysts for us starting all of this was he heard a couple men interviewed and they said, what's the key to your relationship? And they said communication. But you don't get any concrete steps or what that means. So this is a concrete example of what that means, and communication is the key, and how to walk through that. If you don't know how to do that, this gives you step-by-step instructions. So.
Yep.
You know, one of the things I really like about this game is that since I don't have experience in family therapy and stuff like that, to me, it means I'm just a regular guy that came up with something. It works, and that means just regular people should be able to play it.
Yes.
You know, without the help of a therapist and all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
Therapists can benefit from this too. I've recorded 4 therapists playing the game.
Wow.
There might be 6 therapists that I've actually played the game with, and they like it because they can see the benefit and how it helped them. But in their profession, therapists can use this because if therapists were to teach their clients how to play this game, then their clients can come into therapy not angry and mad over simple stuff, and then the therapist can work on things, the deep stuff, the things that they actually went to school for, you know, daddy issues or whatever. I don't know anything about this stuff. So, and like I said, me and my wife, we got kicked out on the 5th. It was supposed to be 12 or 16 weeks. And so a lot of people just don't finish therapy, I believe. Because they feel like they've been teamed up on or gamed up on and stuff like this. So if they can get rid of those little issues, then the therapist can actually do the whole 12 or 16 week sessions.
Work on the deeper issues.
And take care of people better. But I just like it because regular people can do it, and it works.
And also, I just want to add, because, you know, most people don't want to go to therapy. You know, they don't want to talk about their problem with somebody else on the outside, because some people just don't want people in their business. So, like you said, it's for just every regular people. This keeps it in the house. You know, you follow the steps. You know, you can resolve it right then and there. You know, and like I said, it's ongoing. You know, because you're gonna always come across stuff that you didn't think about, or maybe I didn't know was the issue for you that you brought to my attention because you didn't know how to bring it to my attention. And the game illustrates that very well, how to bring it to the attention.
Exactly.
What you said about you not knowing this issue, that happens a bit. Quite a few people have played the game, and usually he didn't even know it was an issue. I remember one Saturday, it was Juneteenth. I met a guy I hadn't seen in like 25 years, and I was telling him about the game, and I said, and I don't know what he had said to me, but I said to him, you know, sometimes people play the game and they don't even know that what they played was an issue. the next day I was having a YBAngry party where we get a few couples together and they all play YBAngry. So I invited him, and sure enough, after him and his wife played, he said, "Well, I didn't even know that was an issue." And I was like, "I told you yesterday."
So we don't have issues.
Right. Just imagine how many people walk around. Because I know I'm guilty of some things. I'm just like, oh, okay, and just let it go. And you think you're just letting it go, but what you're doing is you're pressing it down and pressing it down, and eventually it's going to come out. So just to be able to, like you said, dialogue about those things, because it may not be a concern to him, but if it's a concern to me, we can address it and then move on from it.
I think everything matters. One day I go to see a couple, and the first step is the couple has to agree on one issue to resolve. And I was saying that to this couple, and they were kind of hem-humming, trying to think of one. I said, well, the couple yesterday did it on, should we buy a dryer? This couple says, oh, that's not a big deal. And I said, well, it is. If you're the one that has to kick this dryer once a week, if it's your role, you might not feel like putting as much love in the food. Or you might not feel like having sex.
Right.
Or the partner might come in with new power tools. Like, you didn't need that, and deep down, she really wanted a dryer. Anyway, I believe little issues permeate into other issues in our lives. If we just take care of ththings as they happen, then we can, that means the couple is talking and they're understanding each other more, and the bond is growing stronger, and they'll just stay together forever.
Absolutely. That's those hard conversations, those hard things, like being able to work through them, that does create a bond and a closeness, and that just grows.
That reminds me, when you talked about the communication, most people think they are good communicators, and really they're not. They whether they can articulate or not, they might be able to articulate whether they don't listen. So one of the couples, actually it's the same couple that at the party, the YBAngry party, the same couple where I said the guy didn't even know it was an issue. They said, I think in the video he said, well, we're good communicators or something like that. But when it came to the step forward, he or she had to say, so what you're saying to me is, they had to do it like 4 or 5 times to make sure, because he was saying something, I don't remember if it was he or she, but one of them was saying something, and the other one was just not getting it.
Right.
So it took them 4 or 5 times. And that's important because, when you're frustrated, you're not going to be as patient and understanding. Things just get misunderstood because we're so much less resourceful.
Exactly.
So this helps us, stay on the same page and be peaceful.
Now, have you ever had couples when they're in that stage of, so what I hear you're saying is, do they get frustrated with that if they're not able to clearly articulate what the other one has said? Or do you kind of move them through?
No. So what usually happens is, if she says, if her issue was, I want to buy a new car because this one has broken down 3 times in the last 2 months, and then he goes, so what you're saying to me is, this car is raggedy, and she'll say, no, that's not what I'm saying. It might, because it might be raggedy, but that don't mean it's broken down 3 times in the last 2 months. And so he'll have to say, so what you're saying is, it's expensive to get towed. Whatever is in his head, that's not really what she's saying. He just keeps saying it, and she'll say no. And sometimes I will interject and say, just tell him again what you say it to him again. To make sure he's on the same page, or I'll tell him to look at what she wrote. But he'll finally get it, and then they can move on. So they don't get frustrated. They probably might feel sorry for each other, whereas have some compassion. Whereas when you're fussing or in the wrong mood, you might feel attacked, or you might attack.
I think that a lot of us have learned to listen to respond. So it's not like you're listening to
Right.
your partner, what they're saying. You're listening to respond. So, okay, I got to come back. I got to be able to say something. And I'm guilty of that. That's what I used to do. Like, I'm listening to respond because she going to be like, so what you think about that? The whole time, that hourglass is spinning. Hourglass is spinning on this buffer like
With their issue today, one thing that was really key today that I want to point out was your issue was it a 9.5? The first one we did?
No, it was a 9.
It was a 9. That's how important it was on a scale of 1 to 10. It was a 9 to him, but it was a 4 to her.
Right.
So that let them know
Yes.
that they valued, their values were different on that detail
Right.
of the issue.
Right.
And remember I said, if they can understand each other here, then they would win the game. Most people win the game on the first card anyway. But being able to come together where the values, first they have to know their values are different.
Right.
You know, so he's like, they need to learn to defend themselves or whatever. I don't know I don't remember what it was. And she's like, I don't care. And they were to talk about it until she cared about it. Like I said, remember I told you, I whispered to you, one lady, I don't remember what that detail was either, but she wrote a 0. I think his was a 10 and she wrote a 0. Like, I don't give a dang.
I don't care nothing about that.
Right. But,
And that's important too for them to understand that no, this is something that's more significant to him. So maybe when those times come up and there is emotion, well, that's why he behaves that way, because he, you know, it's more important. So that's even important to be able to rank the details.
Right. So, like when she initiates sex more often, the guy often says he's tired of initiating all the time, and that's his 10 or whatever. She might say 0. Doesn't matter who initiates, you know, and to him it's a big deal.
Right.
To her, hey, as long as it gets done, you know, why you whining? So it's good that once you realize, oh, it's a 10 to him, it does make a difference.
Right.
And it also helps him to see that she didn't think it was that big a deal who initiated.
Right.
Even though he's always talking about it. You know? So it helps to
I
understand.
can definitely see that. I can definitely see that.
But I like how you put now that we're talking about it, it makes more sense why you put the scale 0 to 10 instead of just asking a person, does it matter to you? Because like you said, it's not about what you say, how you say it. So in the midst of that conversation, oh yeah, that's not a big issue for me. That sounds way worse than you seeing it on the paper as a
3
0
or
a 2.
right.
You didn't see
Right.
number, and then like, it's easier to rank it just by putting it out there. And like you said, we're bringing this detail to the forefront. This is the umbrella of everything that's underneath. So you know that this is, like you said, that's why most of everybody went on the first card, because it's right there. It's the most important issue in the person's mind that has the issue. You know, so. So saying that's pretty cool when you put the relevancy on the scale. So I think it's pretty neat.
I think too the fact that all the details were done separately and they ranked them separately, but then y'all put them together and ranked them so that it doesn't matter who was on what scale or where that person was on the scale. The detail, the issue is an issue that we both have to come together and work through.
And I think and if I'm understanding your thought process, I think you did it that way so nobody gets off of that one detail, that one main issue. Because some people will, like you said about the car, but then you start talking about the house, start talking about the shed. Let's just stick to just one problem. Let's conquer this one. Then we can go to the next one.
Right. That's why they're on separate cards. So because we don't want him complaining about how she cooks if this is their roles, and she's complaining him about the condition of the yard. You know, we're never gonna be seeing eye to eye. We're talking about different things. So I think a lot of times, you know, the guy will be talking, or the women to be fussing about something totally different. You know?
Oh yeah.
Well, and then
That's a bigger issue.
you know, you've said like both parties win. the relationship win.
Yeah, it's the kind of game you can't win by yourself.
Right.
Yeah.
The relationship have to win or you both lose.
Right.
Yeah.
So when those cards came to, because we were watching, so we weren't necessarily following along or anything. We're watching, and when you said put them in order, I was like, how they gonna do that?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking
putting
too.
them in
Yeah.
order together,
Put them in order.
then that's significant because that's the two of you coming together. So even though the detail that was rated highest was from you, that was the detail that was most important to both of you in order for both of you to win. So that was, I like the significance of that.
Right. And they also started working together by just agreeing on the issue to resolve. Right? They both agreed to resolve on that one issue and they wrote it down.
Right.
So they start off working together.
Right.
Versus him or her coming to
Right.
we need to talk, and it's one against the other.
True, you know, that's like, oh, damn.
What I do now?
What I did this week?
You said everything. What I done did now.
Hey, that shoot
What I
your
done
head.
did.
What I done did.
That's one that shoot your blood pressure up, boy. Oh my God, heart to jump to my chest.
That words did your mama tell you? She was
Wow.
You haven't said much.
Just listening.
Okay.
Just taking everything in.
She's the observer.
Just agreeing, yeah.
You guys, you glad you played?
I'm so happy, yes. I'm so happy. I'm so happy.
That's fantastic. Because you know,
Yes.
I want to ask her why she's so happy, but it took her so long to write down. That's why we didn't do it 26 minutes.
Another statement.
She's just a happy, loving person, so that's why she's like that. People
Want to make
pleasing.
sure I got it out right the right
I know.
way.
Maybe
That's
mad,
a
she
good
gonna tell
thing
you.
too with the writing. You have to limit, like you said, you have to limit what you're saying. You're limited with
I was about to
space,
write a paragraph.
precision of words. You have to
Right.
make sure
let me
that
tell
the
you what
wording.
this joker did the other day.
Because remember, it's all
I can't
about
repeat that.
communication
Right.
and understanding.
Right.
So if you want him to repeat back to you what you said, you can't say a whole lot,
Right.
right?
Right.
So let him understand a little bit. Just say a few words and let him make sure he understands that, or vice versa, and they can stay on the same page. So that's why I just leave a little space in there so they can't write too much. I have had to stop people. I say, it says be brief right here.
Well, don't say flip over the back
Because of
for further details.
Because in the
Ask
next
some
step,
scratch
he has to say to you,
Right.
tell you what you mean.
Right. Ask for a second sheet. You said people writing really hard. And you're like, wait a minute, slow down.
How much ink you got in this pen? I'm gonna be more than that.
And I feel like you also learn something about your spouse that you probably didn't even know. Because you gotta think when you meet somebody, you're not asking how they write, or anything like that, even how they understand anything. So when you ask them a question, sometimes like Byron said, you're just listening to get ready to respond again. You're not absorbing that information. So then you gotta find out, how do I attack this situation where that person can better understand it? Because then what if the spouse don't want to write that issue down?
Right.
Then you have another issue you have to deal with,
Right.
rather than just saying, okay, this is why we can't play the game, because there's deeper issues. So I think it helps put a lot of stuff into perspective, about that person.
Yeah.
That was well said, except you said attack. You want to attack That was good, though.
I think that when you hear communication, you oftentimes think of speaking. So when I communicate, but the other part of communication is listening. And so by writing it down, that takes that part out, and you're forced to read it, and then the other person has to say, this is what I understand, and that back and forth. So communication is more than just what you say. It's how you listen also.
I've had players. I had a guy who used the word force. He said, I was forced to hear her. So you actually hear her. Yeah. Now, and a lot of times the lady will say, I felt heard.
Right.
Because they're actually listening. People listening.
Right.
That's fantastic. So, if you don't mind letting the listeners know, how much does this game cost them?
The game is $19.99.
$19.99.
Yeah, $19.99. The book
That's a cheap date.
yeah.
That's a cheap date, y'all. Man, come on, man.
And
Learn something.
and you get a lot of benefit out of it.
Yeah,
Right, a lot of benefit
Yeah.
because who doesn't want to
Have
have
peace.
a peaceful home environment,
I'm telling you.
peaceful relationship, and all of that. So
A lot
it's
of
well worth it.
times, even though there are always going to be bigger issues, I think a lot of times it's the little things that always gets people to break up.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you can go through
Right.
deeper stuff, but little stuff here, little stuff here, little stuff there, and that just plucks away at your foundation. So I mean, being in 1999, you can get rid of these little issues. It's worth it.
And the big issues.
Right.
I
big
always
issues.
encourage when I sit down with people to give me their hardest one.
Hardest
Like I
one.
did with you guys. Give me the hardest one that you think you can't settle, or the thing that's been going on the longest while I'm there to coach them through the game. You mentioned a cheap date. I say, before someone makes a commitment to get in a relationship with someone, they should play the game.
That's
You're right.
Because
You're 100%
if
correct.
couples that have been fighting about something for 30 or 40 years, if they are able to resolve their disagreements, and they have a history of, what about when you did this to me, and what about that? A bunch of negative stuff.
Yeah.
But when you first meet someone, you looking at everything through rose-colored
Oh
glasses,
yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
and you both are.
Yeah.
And if you can't win the game when you both at your best,
Right.
and you don't have that history, then you're probably not compatible. Because I believe if you give two reasonable people the same, if they have the same data in their head, they'll come up with the same reasonable conclusion if they're reasonably compatible,
Right.
right?
That makes a lot of sense.
a whole lot
And
of
that will
sense.
save you a lot of headache, you know,
Oh, yeah.
to know now that
Yeah.
me and this guy, you know, it's okay. I want a dog, and can we have a dog when we get married or whatever? You can't settle that, or where you're gonna live, or should you have a kid,
That's gonna be.
Then there's no right.
Right.
It's an uphill battle
Right.
before the battle begins.
right?
Yeah.
And I've done some real difficult ones. I sat with this one couple, and this was all new to me, and it was, should the stud carry the baby? You know what a stud is?
Oh yeah.
You know what a stud is?
Yeah.
Yeah,
You know what
I
it
think
is.
in terms of animals or humans.
Humans.
Or, okay, yes.
Yeah, I didn't know. I didn't know what a stud was. To me, I don't know if I can say the word now, but I didn't know what a stud was. But I'm like, you know, so a lesbian couple, the one that acts like a man is the stud, and the one that acts like a girl is the femme. And, so their issue was, should the stud carry the baby? I'm saying to myself, no, that's why she want to be a stud.
Yeah, that's my thing.
Like, but they resolved it, you know.
Well, as long as they resolve
Yeah,
it.
when they talked about it, it's everything. All you have to do is communicate well,
Right.
instead
Right.
of fussing. If you talk and listen and understand each other, they'll come to an agreement.
Wow.
And I like the idea of going into it, even though those basic with kids and where will we live and pets and those
Let me
things.
tell you this one. So I had gone like 2 or 3 months where I didn't have an issue that I was like, I don't know if they're gonna be able to settle this one. And then I go see this one couple. Their issue is, should we spank the kids, right? Now look, that's not that big of a deal, except for he was the one that wanted to spank the kids. He grew up getting his butt whooped, he said. She grew up not getting any whoopings, right? So that's already tough right there, right? But the real tough part was they were her kids.
Oh,
Right?
wow.
No, I was like, oh man, how they gonna,
wow.
you know what I'm saying?
Oh,
Like,
man.
But hey, they
This is
settled
really
it.
beat some kids.
Wow.
You know? Right. And they ain't
long
keeping
as they
his,
settled it,
right?
right.
Right. But they were able to sell it. So, and the thing is, you know, once a couple come to an agreement, like the couple that did the should the stud carry the baby, they didn't agree on. Usually, you're trying to agree on a yes or no.
Right.
That's how you win the game. So like the stud couple, they agreed that the lady would go to the doctor. Because one of the reasons why she didn't want to have a baby, because she didn't think she could physically deal with it, because she had some health problems.
Okay.
So they agreed to go to the doctor.
Right.
So now, at least they're not nagging at each other,
Right.
fussing at each other. They can be cool and go out on dates and know that, hey, she's got a doctor appointment. After that, we'll just play the game again if we need to.
Right.
But they, they have peace. about
Right.
it.
Well, and then like to have those issues and going back and forth with no resolve, that's kind of like a baseless. Like, what's the point other than to go back and forth with each other if we're not going to come to some type of compromise, some type of resolution?
There's arguing and fussing at that point,
Right.
Yeah,
right.
pretty much.
And I can't speak for anybody but myself, but I love my peace,
Yeah.
and I don't like a lot of. I don't like a lot of that, so I couldn't imagine coming home to a situation where I know there's a recurrent issue that hadn't been resolved.
I don't think people mean to cause drama.
Right.
We say no fuss, no drama. It's just that when one party talks to their partner about something, especially if it's the fifth time you're talking to me about it, then I might feel nagged.
Right.
Right.
And that's when emotions get up. And but if we're sitting down to play the game and we agree that we're going to talk about this, then I don't feel like you're nagging me now because I already agreed to talk about it.
Right. It's talking to versus talking at situation.
Right.
So we're talking
Yep.
to each other, and you're not just throwing things at me.
And actually, I learned something about myself today playing this YBAngry game. That in order to win, you have to be able to communicate. You have to be able to listen. And previously, I would listen to my husband, but I wasn't listening. I was ready to say my part, say my piece.
Respond.
So this teaches me to write it down because I'm better with writing things down. Like sometimes we may have a disagreement. We're talking. I'll go in another room. I get on my phone. I text him. It makes me feel better that I got out exactly what I wanted to say. So this game is very helpful with that.
Yeah,
very helpful.
Definitely. I was the same way. I need to write it out. I can't say it like I want to.
Yeah.
So something in the same cloth. That's why.
You what now?
Cut from the same cloth.
Some people say writing it down. When they write it down, they say, that don't make sense. They get to see what they wrote and realize that's not really what they mean. So it gives them the chance to say the right thing.
I'm a writer too, but I get very passionate. So if I'm speaking, I might let the emotion take over what I'm saying. But when I'm writing, it's more difficult to do that, and I can be more logical and clear. So
if I'm writing, it just sounds rude. And I might not want it to sound rude, but that's why I'm like that. I have to speak on it so you can hear my emotion. You can feel that, I understand where you're coming from. It takes some time to be so open-ended.
Well, we'd like to thank you, Mr. Jeter, for joining us. Also, again, Shannon and Paul for joining us on this episode of the Beyond I Do podcast. And Mr. Jeter, would you like to share your contact information with our guests?
So, if someone wants to email me, I can be reached at Mr. Rod Jeter, MRRODGAETER, at YBAngry.com. That's the letter Y, the letter B, and the word angry all together. But if they go to my website, YBAngry.com, from there they can check out my YouTube channel. It's YBAngry. If they search YBAngry, then you can see a ton of couples actually playing the game and follow it step by step. There's a how to play YBAngry step-by-step video on there. Okay. There's a why they say it works video, so and you can get all that from the website. Okay. And please get the 3 free tips on how to resolve disagreements without arguing. Just click on the link, shoot me your name and email address, and I'll shoot them a video of 3 free tips.
Okay, that sounds fantastic. And hopefully, soon we'll see y'all on there.
All right. Make sure in the meantime to check us out on Facebook and Instagram and our YouTube channel. And we will make sure to include all of the links so that you can find the YBAngry game yourself.
Yep. And until next time, we will holler at y'all.
Peace out.